to change the direction and the focus of her work, and she began this in 2006. The way I came about it, I'm going to go ahead and let you know that the world that I came up in is a lot different than some of the things that I've heard about tonight, and I so appreciate the work you're doing, sir. I appreciate the work you're doing, and really how you're being used to help these people. I grew up in Atlanta, but I grew up out in the suburbs. I grew up in East Cobb. And I went into the ministry at a fairly young age, and I've spent a lot of years in ministry work. I went away from it for about 5 years, and I went through some storms in my own life. And when I came back to it, I made a commitment, and I said that there was a reality to some of the things that are going on in this city that I love so much that I would no longer close my eyes to. And I made a commitment that if doors opened, I would go through them. And whenever you make that kind of commitment, doors start to fly open in front of you if you're looking for them. But about a year ago, a really sweet lady found me on Facebook. And she has a young son who I had gotten to know about 12 years ago, when he was only about 12 years old, and he had started to get in some trouble in Gwinnett County in the school that he was attending. And so she asked if I could kind of big brother him, which I did, and I grew very close to him. A Latino family, broken home, and he had started getting involved with some bad company. And so I kind of took him under my wing. We started getting to know one another. And then I moved to another city. I lost connection with this family. Well, just this past year, she found me and she asked if I could go and see her son who had gotten in more trouble. And I said that I'd be glad to, and found out where he was, and he was incarcerated. And he now is, he's basically down at the DeKalb County Jail. Been there for 2 years awaiting a trial, and he's facing a murder charge. And if he is convicted, obviously he's going to go away with a life sentence. And so I went to the jailhouse that day, and I had no idea that my life was about to change. And I walked in and I was expecting to see this young man because in my mind's eye he was the same young man, but now he was a grown man and had grown men problems. And I began it was almost a year ago, going to spend time with him, and I have every week since. And I've been working with this young man who's now 24 years old, and he's been a member of MS-13 for the last 12 years. Now, getting in as young as he did, being local all that time and doing all the things he's done, obviously he's risen up in that world. And I walked into a world that I knew very little about. But again, I began to work with this young man, and I love him so much. I knew him when he was young, that my heart just went out to him, and he began to change. And the more he changed, the more I was inspired. That I believed, as someone said, that there's gifts inside of people, that just because they get misdirected and squander those gifts or cover them up, they're still there. And it began to change me. Well, I didn't know a lot about this world, so I went home and I began to record, DVR, everything on TV about gangs and prisons. And me being from where I was from, I figured I had to get educated. And so I started, prison shows, Hard Time, Locked Up Abroad, Gangland, Hard Time, Gang, Tough Time, Hard Time, Gang Time, Tough. It's like every kind of show. My wife started getting a little concerned when she saw the shows I was recording. But anyway, I was trying to educate myself, but what it did is it softened my heart. Well, there was one on there, it was a National Geographic special. It was a 5-part series on Georgia's toughest prison. And it was about a place called Hays State Prison up in Tryon, Georgia. Oh, well, we know some people. And so I started recording this, and I became very familiar with this place called Hays State, and there was something that just made me feel like I was supposed to go there. And I made that commitment. God opened doors, but I would tell you the truth, I kind of forgot about it, but that it made an impression on me that it was really has now been designated Georgia's high max prison. It was a 5, now it's the place, right? So it's the prison inside the prison system. So I went and I spoke at a corporate event, which I do a lot of corporate speaking. And the next week I went and I spoke, and out of the overflow of the heart I said, I'd love to go and work in prisons, but I don't know how to get involved. What am I going to do? Call them and tell them I have some ideas for them? And so, but I said it, and after I got done speaking that day, a young lady walked up to me and handed me a card and said, "Call this gentleman. You guys have a lot in common." And again, I did not realize that card was about to change my life. So I called that man, introduced myself. He's with an organization called Kairos. And that is a prison ministry. And I went and got trained. I went certified with the GDOC, went through the training, and I called him. I said, I'm ready to go. And so I went and got in his car that day, and guess where we were going? Hays State Prison. And it was the very place I couldn't have made it happen, but it happened for me. And so I walked into that place a while back, and I've been going every week because I went in with Kairos, started working the chaplain over that prison, and the warden decided they liked the connection that I made with the residents there. And so I go every Friday for 2 hours, and I work with those men, and I've grown to love a number of the brothers in that place. And it's just, again, opened up this whole world to me that I had never been exposed to. Well, about the same time, somebody from the Atlanta Union Mission found me and asked me if I'd be willing to help out with them. And if you don't know, that's a place where you got to be on the streets to get into that place. And I realized that the connection was a lot of guys get out. I have a guy I've been working with that maxed out of Hays yesterday. He was given $25 a bus ticket and said, good luck. And this guy's got nothing. And he and I are getting together this week, and I'm going to connect him with my church. But I realized that a lot of guys get out and they end up on the streets. And so they hopefully get to a place like the Atlanta Union Mission, and so I started working there, and I go there on Wednesday nights and get to spend time with those, and I've grown very attached to the guys, the mighty men of the mission is what I call them. But again, trying to deal with this recidivism problem, and so it's become a big part of my work. So I preached about it at church one day, and a young lady walked up to me and handed me a card, and it was for this group called Project Karma. And I didn't know anything about Project Karma, just as I didn't know anything about Hays or the mission before someone approached me. But this made all the sense in the world. Because I thought, if I can get involved in reaching children before they get to the point where they get into gangs, end up in prison, and then end up on the streets with nowhere to go, and it's just a revolving door, in and out. 3 out of 4 of the men that leave Hays go back, and that's why I'm so impressed with the work you're doing, sir. But I want to do something about that, but me being from where I'm from, I just do what I can do, right? So this group, Project Karma, what we do is we go into inner city schools, elementary schools primarily, some middle school work, and the schools we partner with, like Whiteford Elementary is one of the ones we partner with, they help us to identify the children that are right in the middle of the grieving process but really don't know how to deal with it. So they've lost a father, they've lost a mother, a brother, a sister, a cousin. Someone's been killed in their neighborhood, and they're grieving, but they don't know what to do with it. And we go in and we use the skills that Miss Alicia has developed over the years to help these kids in a group setting learn to identify, express, and get support for their grief and their feelings. And what we found is if they can learn to heal the wound that's inside of them, a lot of times that they don't even realize is there, that when they get to middle school and the gangs show up and say, hey, we'll be your family, then maybe they'll find an alternative and they'll be able to say no. And it's amazing, and I'll close with this, but I walked into Whiteford, and I'm going to tell you, this is new to me. I'm being trained. I'm in school every day, but I feel like God's pushed me to the front of the class. And I walk into Whiteford Elementary, we're in the library, and they bring this group, about 10 or 12 little kids from this inner city, and all of them have one thing in common, that they've had a death in the family. And they don't know me, and they don't know Alicia, but we walk in, they introduce us, and they say, hi, Miss Alicia, hi, Mr. Kit. And we say, well, we're going to start today, and let's go back to the back of the library where we'll start our work. And this one little boy, he picks me out, and he runs over to me. I've never met him. And he tugs me on the pant leg and he says, Mr. Kit? And I say, yeah, buddy. And he said, how long am I going to be knowing you? And I said, what, buddy? He said, how long are you going to be in my life? And he looked me right in the eye. And it about broke my heart. And I looked at him and I said, 8 weeks. But we're going to get to be friends. And what it occurred to me is all I am is an adult male that walked into his school as a stranger, and he's already concerned that I'm going to leave him because he's got no men.